ever wondered if you or a loved one can truly practice IFA because of a special needs like ADHD, autism, or neurodivergence? In this live stream, we're talking about what IFA truly teaches when it comes to special needs, what's misunderstood, and how to stay connected to the tradition in a way that works for you. Whether you're learning to live in balance with your condition or working to overcome certain challenges, IFA offers guidance, not exclusion. If you've ever wondered whether you or someone you love can perform rituals, go through initiation, or deepen your connection to this path, you'll want to stay for this conversation. We're going live in just a few seconds, so stay close and we'll get started. Greetings all. Thank you for joining me. I see you guys coming in and I really appreciate you all for showing up. Today we are talking about a special topic, which is special needs, practicing the IFA tradition specifically when it comes to dealing with special needs. So we're going to talk about this from a multitude of angles. First, definitely, what does it mean like to have a special needs in the tradition? And then also, how do you actually integrate into the tradition with specific types of special needs? Likewise, I want to cover some healing mechanisms because I got so many different questions from you all about the special needs dynamic as a whole when it comes to IFA. Welcome, my dear Renoverse. I appreciate you. And everybody else who is showing up. I see you all gathering, and I know a few of you all are in the session. So let's go ahead, guys, and get started. First, we're going to deal with the IFA teachings surrounding special needs. First thing I want to talk about here is how is it viewed? How are special needs as a whole viewed in IFA? So individuals with disabilities, special needs, whatever terminology that you decide to use for it, and please forgive me, I'm not trying to be offensive to anybody if I say the wrong words related to these dynamics. I know it can be some political things there, so I want to make sure that I'm doing it right. So correct me, anybody, if I say something wrong by using any terminology that is not politically correct. Greetings, Asaju. Thank you for showing up as well. So when it comes to IFA, it's typically going to be considered in 4 different ways when it comes to special needs, right? So the person can be considered either very much so blessed or gifted if they're born with a special need, or they could also be considered individually cursed or generationally cursed, depending on how that pans out. We're going to get to what that looks like for each of these dynamics. Also, another part of special needs is that they can absolutely come from natural sources, such as environmental sources, toxins, pollutants in the air, in the water, in the food, vaccines, and other formulas that are out there. Likewise, from catastrophic causes. So obviously somebody can end up in an accident or something like that and have some type of traumatic brain injury or something of that nature. So that can definitely result in a special needs or a special condition. But these types of things are only going to happen after birth. So when a person is born, that's going to be looked at more so from a spiritual perspective. And it can also be both. So it can have spiritual and natural roots to it. And we're going to dig into, what to do and how to know the difference. Greetings, Awadissa. Thank you for showing up likewise. So let's go ahead. Greetings, everybody who's coming in on IG. So you're saying neurodivergent. Yeah, that's one form of disability, if you will. It's not in the same way so as far as physical disabilities, because somebody can have a physical disability and not be neurodivergent. But that's definitely part of all of the dynamics that I'm speaking about here today. So in general, in Yoruba society, in Ifa tradition specifically, so I don't want to lump Yoruba culture with Ifa tradition, though they are very much so heavily interrelated. But we do have to understand that the Ifa tradition is absolutely a part of a spiritual system that all Yoruba people do not practice. So keep that in mind, guys, because a lot of times people come to the Yoruba tradition thinking that all Yorubas practice it, and unfortunately they don't. They've been inundated by Christianity and Islam, very much so, like the diaspora. But when it comes to Ifa in particular, the spiritual system in general, if a person is born with a disability, they're not usually seen as flawed in a sense. Oftentimes, it's actually considered part of their destiny. And you are very, very welcome. I think it's I am rebellion done. You're very, very welcome. So challenges that a person goes through when they're born with it, coming out of the womb with a special needs. This individual is usually thought to have that special need be part of their destiny, something that they absolutely have to go through as part of, just fulfilling their destiny, learning critical lessons about their life. We all have something to go through, right? So it's not that these individuals are, not sorry, it's not that other people are not going through things as well. However, somebody with the special needs, obviously they're going to go through a whole lot more in general than somebody without one, depending on their circumstances, but they're still going to have problems. That's just how it goes, because they're going to deal with a lot of mental or cognitive issues, physical issues sometimes, etc. Now, when it comes to physical or cognitive disabilities, these types of things can reflect, not always do, but they can absolutely reflect curses or some kind of unresolved karmic pattern. So the curse could be on the individual themselves, especially if it's later on in life after they're born. That person may have done something to somebody who put a curse on them, or they could have been involved in a lot of negative cursing type of spell work, doing that constantly towards other people, and then it ended up coming back against them. Likewise, it can be a result of a generational curse, especially if your parents or something like that speak negatively against people who have special needs. So you have to be careful there when you talk about other people who have special needs. This actually comes up sometimes as taboos for some people, that they should never speak against somebody with special needs, because in doing so, then they can put that on their child as a generational curse. So you have to be very, very careful, because that type of energy can come back to you. With that being said, especially if it's something of this nature where it happened after the fact, there can be certain rituals performed or ceremonies done in order to help a person overcome those patterns. And we're going to get deeper into that, talking about the spiritual medicine, even so the natural medicine, etc., that can help out with these cases, especially if it's some type of karmic debt that the person has to pay off because of what they did or what their parents did, etc., to bring their handicap position on them, that disabilities on them. So whenever somebody in Yoruba society, these individuals, let me say this too. So these individuals are oftentimes considered very much so blessed, right? Especially coming out of the womb. They're usually considered to be blessed or really, really gifted. And so when they are, people in the society are going to treat them very, very special in a good way, right? It's not like, oh, you retarded or you're mentally ill or something like that. Not in a negative way. They usually get really, really special treatment in public spheres, in gatherings and things like that, because they're seen as really special in the spiritual realm and gifted. So if you give these individuals certain things or you take care of them in a certain way, it said that you're going to get more blessings and more abundance coming to you if you treat individuals with disabilities or special needs in a certain way, especially those who were born. We're not talking about the individuals who got this way because of curses and things of that nature, right? And so a lot of times when people do give offerings or things like that, they prefer to actually share them with somebody who has some type of disability or special needs, because they feel like that energy is going to come back to them like double or triple fold because of that. All right. These individuals, as I said before, they are, people consider them to have really, really high levels of ashe. So it's really good to deal with them in very, very beautiful ways. Even so, you definitely don't want to mistreat these individuals, because just like you can get a whole lot more coming back to you for helping them out 2, 3 times, etc., you can also get 2, 3 times the punishment when you ill treat somebody who has a mental health issue or any type of disability in that regard. You say you are amazing. Thank you so much. So this is how it goes. So you definitely want to be careful when it comes to these dynamics. Now I'm going to touch briefly on Orishas, 2 Orishas that deal with sickness, that deal with mental, not necessarily mental, I keep wanting to say mental health issues for some reason, but it's any type of disabilities, any type of special needs. So it's all encompassing, completely inclusive here. So Obàtálá, as many of you all probably are aware of, has a hand when it comes into the dynamic of dealing with individuals who have deformities, special needs, etc., because Obàtálá was responsible for shaping human bodies. So he's closely connected to that notion of disabilities. So there's a mythological narrative about Obàtálá. When he was creating humans, which he was tasked with doing, he ended up drinking some palm wine and he became very inebriated. And so in the process of creating humans, he actually got so drunk that he started to misshape humans. And this is even so where it said that some people do come out being born with deformities or disabilities, handicaps, etc., through no fault of their doing or no fault of their parents doing. So this is not the karmic type of energy that's going on here. So Obàtálá is also said to take, special care of these individuals. That being said, it does not mean that Obàtálá is every individual who has disabilities or special needs their head Orisha, right? So any Orisha could be the head Orisha of such an individual. But Obàtálá is said to govern that aspect of human deformities or malalignments when it comes to their physical being, things of that nature. So we also have Obalú-Ayé. No, I'm messing it up, right? But if y'all want a better pronunciation, definitely get it somewhere else, because I'm not the best at all of the Yoruba terminology, as I say all the time, but I try. So this particular deity governs illnesses, afflictions, healing, deeply connected to skin diseases or conditions, specifically chronic illnesses. So that would be the things like the diabetes and the heart disease and lung disease, etc. Also physical disabilities, things that you can actually see. This particular Orisha is oftentimes compared to, who was it in the Bible with the leprosy, right? Who carried the cane. I can't remember the name exactly, but it's kind of that energy of sickness, but then also healing. So this particular Orisha can absolutely bring illness, sicknesses, overseas, even so like epidemics, pandemics. So when we went through COVID, that was the energy behind that. So this specific Orisha can likewise heal. Okay, it embodies that transformative energy through suffering. So it's like you go through a period of suffering, you deal with what you have to deal with in that process, you learn vital lessons, you grow, you evolve as a person, and then once you got into a certain level, you overcome that. So it could definitely be possible that Obalú-Ayé, I'm trying to say it right. I know I'm messing up. I know I'm not getting it right, but this particular Orisha or energy can absolutely come in and be a healing force. So many times, I see it come up a lot of times in people's reading when they are dealing with sickness. So it can definitely be a helpful source. You're saying Naman. I don't know what that means. You have to explain it for me, Asaju. I'm trying with these names. So anyway, though this energy is very much so, this Orisha is very much so feared a lot of times because of his ability to bring about sicknesses, plagues, diseases, massive sicknesses too, because that's important in his role. It's not just on an individual level. You'll oftentimes see it when, like I said, with the COVID and the plague and so forth and so on, that has happened throughout the ages, where you see these massive sickness, massive death, etc., that's impacting society as a whole. However, it's also honor for its ability, for his ability to bring forth healing through their process. All right. And so it's not that necessarily that because somebody is sick, that either one of these Orishas are going to come through and provide healing for that. Oh, okay. Name in. Okay, that's what you're saying. I got you. Yeah. So you said that's the guy in the Bible with the cane. Thank you for that. Could not remember with the leprosy. Absolutely. Thank you. Somebody else is on Instagram is saying it too. I don't know what I was reading, but it was quick. So anyhow, moving forward, initiation preparation, because this is very important. We're going to talk about rituals, everyday rituals as well, but initiation is very, very important when it comes to somebody who has any form of special needs going through this process, but especially when we're talking about things like the neurodivergence, the autism, and those types of conditions, because you're dealing a lot of times with not only cognitive impairments here, but issues with stemming, issues with people being not being able to be touched and things of that nature. So whenever you're dealing with this, right? So obviously it wouldn't be the person in that particular case, but if you do have other special needs, maybe you're wheelchair bound, etc., you always want to communicate that to whoever is going to take you through that initiation process. Or if it's a loved one, you need to communicate that with them clearly. I would advise starting with that from the door. Whenever you start to work with somebody and they're doing any type of work for you or maybe a family member of yours who has special needs, you absolutely want to tell that person what's going on in that individual's life, because it's going to impact more than just the initiation process itself. It's also going to impact different things that go on with their spiritual work, not the Evo that can normally be done and no issue, but especially if they're going to get a crochet or things like that, or even so natural remedies when it concerns like allergies, etc. So the initiation process, going down that path, is there something that you desire to do or you desire to take your loved one through, if it's been divined or whatever, what have you, when it comes to these dynamics, it is open to anybody who has physical, mental disabilities with the proper guidance, right? So as I said before in a previous live stream, as long as the individual can speak and follow instructions, they can absolutely go through the initiation process. A child as young as 5, even so younger, who has the wherewithal to be able to follow those instructions and to repeat a few words after somebody, can go through IFA initiation. They need to be in that proper space, though. Again, this may be a conversation that you need to have with your owl if you're concerned about it. So I would suggest, if you're obviously physically present, take the individual there so that they can see, is this person capable of going through the initiation process? If you're not physically there with them, if they're like in Nigeria or something like that, try to get on a video call and let the owl talk to the individual, or at least, just communicate with them if the child or the individual cannot communicate back with the person. But they can get an idea of whether that's safe or is recommended for them to actually go through the process as a whole. All right. Now, as I said before, with IFA initiation in our previous live stream, usually you're going to go through this process by yourself. A normally functioning individual, neurotypical, no physical handicaps or disabilities or anything like that, you would go through the process completely and totally by yourself, even though it may be in a group setting, you're still going to go through it alone. You're not going to bring outsiders who are not being initiated into that process with you. But in this case, caregivers can accompany a special needs individual through the initiation process for the most part. There are some caveats, which I'm going to get to shortly, if it is necessary to do so. Again, always have that conversation, because the owl won't always know exactly what's going on with that person and their needs. So I'm emphasizing this here because especially when we're talking about the concept and notion of special needs in the diaspora versus that in Nigeria, because a lot of times things like autism, people may not know about, especially when you're talking about native doctors who haven't, really integrated a lot with the Western world. They may not know that terminology, autism. They may know the symptomology of what's going on, but if you just say that word, they may not understand it. So definitely be very, very clear here. Now, as I said before, there are some caveats as to some things that cannot be done when it comes to them, a person or somebody else, their caregiver, what have you, joining them. So if the caregiver has not gone through IFA initiation themselves, they cannot be present whenever a male, excuse me, whenever a male witnesses his do, right? This isn't even applicable to women, but if it's a male that needs to witness their do, then if the person is uninitiated, they cannot be with them. They have to be initiated, okay? Or when any initiate passes through that sacred grove, uninitiated people cannot be there for those parts only. Other parts they can be there for. Now, when it comes to being present otherwise for the witnessing, and this is for males specifically, witnessing of the do, that part. Passing through the sacred grove is applicable to both males and females. Now, if a person is initiated, their caregiver or whoever is going to go through that process with them, if they are initiated, but they are not ENFs, right? They can't go through that process with a male. So that would be female, I should say. Let me specify that. So if it's a female, let's say a mom trying to go through this process with a male child who has special needs, unless she is an initiated ENFA, she cannot see him witness his do. She can't see him witness the do, and she cannot pass with him through the sacred grove. So keep that in mind. Now, if she is an initiated ENFA, she can do those things. She can pass through. She can see him witness his do. There are going to have to be some arrangements made, possibly with the sacred grove functioning. It depends on the circumstance. This you're going to have to definitely get that clarified with your owl, because typically people don't join people in this process, but if special accommodations are needed, they can be put in place in many instances. But that's going to be on a case-by-case basis. Okay, IFA readings can typically be delivered in so many different forms tailored to that individual's need. So during that initiation process, or even so outside of initiation, when it comes to an individual with special needs practicing the tradition, they can absolutely get their readings in different formats so that they can understand them. Somebody can be present to help them interpret the information if that's necessary. If the person is not highly functioning, especially when we're talking about things like autism or mental retardation, Down syndrome, etc. Usually their caretaker is going to deal with anything that needs to be done when it comes to the results of the reading anyway. Now, when it comes to general rituals and ceremonies and things like that, In general, individuals with special needs can definitely participate in those without a little assistance, excuse me, or without any assistance in some cases, just depending on the nature of their special needs. Whether they can also do this with somebody who is initiated or not initiated, right? So if it comes to just like feeding an Orisha pot or something like that, and they may need some extra help, somebody can help them with that. That individual doesn't have to be initiated in order to help them with that on a day-by-day basis. Greetings. I got a question here. You sent a lot here. I just came in, and if you already mentioned this, I apologize in advance. But why are we as women not able to see the ODU? So I did not cover this. Women are not able to visualize the ODU because we really don't need to, right? So women, we have sacred power, we have special power with our intuition, with the womb. It carries a lot of information and knowledge. So we have a lot of hidden knowledge anyway. So women are just said that they're not supposed to witness the ODU. Now I'm pretty sure there are some more deeper things there. I will just say, if you're here, if you can provide a deeper level answer as to why women don't witness their ODU. But that's what I've been told. It's because we already carry really special sacred power anyway, special knowledge. So it's not something that we necessarily have to do all of the time. But excuse me, that is a thing, even in Isheshe in Nigeria, that women don't go through that process during the initiation stage. So there are other accommodations that can be made. So when we're talking about somebody who is non-verbal, right, they can participate in regular or special rituals through modified forms of communication in many cases, because just because they can't speak or they're not verbal doesn't mean that they can't understand. So usually there are devices, just like in any other case, where you can get information passed to those individuals and you can communicate with them and they can understand things as well. Let's see. So, got a question here. Blessings. You said mental retardation is now called intellectual. Thank you. Intellectual challenge. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. I'm not trying to be offensive. If I say anything out of order, guys, I'm an 80s baby, so that's what I grew up with. And even then, I never said it in an offensive way. That was just what it was called. But moving forward, deaf or hard of hearing individuals can fully engage in IFA, right? Through any type of visual learning, sign language, written materials, things like that. So it's not impossible to practice IFA with a special needs. Many of them, especially in today's world, because there's so many different devices that can be used to translate information and to put it in different formats so that people with special needs can understand it. Like in traditional Yoruba society, it was just, part of the culture. So they dealt with it in whatever ways that needed to be dealt with. They absolutely integrated their family members and people into the culture, into the tradition in very valuable ways whenever they could accommodate them properly. You're saying this has been so helpful. Thank you. You're very, very welcome, and I'm grateful that it is helpful, because this is a very important conversation, and I'm very happy that it was requested. It's such a very important conversation that, we leave this dynamic out a lot in society as a whole, but it's not something that you really think about when it comes to tradition in the same way, unless you're dealing with it, right? So when it comes to individuals who have issues with their vision, whether they're blind or not, they can still practice it using tactile tools, any type of auditory guidance. So if they can hear, you can still walk them through the process, oral instruction. Now, when it comes to Braille, that may not be available yet because I don't know, it could be, but I don't know if like an ODU or even so other information about the tradition has been put in Braille format. I really don't know how that works. If somebody does it on here, please let me know if that is a possibility, because I would love to know it myself. I need to do a little bit of research on that part. So let's see. Aside, you're saying within the EFI community, I've heard the term born with a bad Ori. Is that term referring to special needs? Not specifically. Usually it's referring to somebody more so who is just completely out of alignment, right? Somebody who just like, to put it bluntly and straightforward, kind of for the streets, if you will, right? So somebody that kind of embodies that type of lifestyle, and they're not trying to walk in Iwapele, and so they're always dealing with some type of confusion, commotion, and problems in their life because their Ori is not properly aligned, and that can be fixed once they start doing work with their Ori. They can absolutely fix that. But it's not the same as somebody just having special needs overall, not at all. So I think we covered this part, right, guys, when I talked about the maybe I didn't, so I'll say it again just in case I didn't. So assistive technologies can absolutely be used, the screen readers, the digital tools, etc., as long as they're compatible with the learning which they are. I know, like with me on my website, I absolutely use those devices to where it can be translated. I try my best to always use the alt text, etc., when I'm doing images, and we're seeing that a lot today when it comes to social media, etc. Things are being made much more easy and efficient for individuals with, especially visual impairments. So, it's a long way to go, but we're still working it. Healing with special needs. So this was a question, definitely, whether or not it is possible. So there's a crochet that is available, even so natural remedies, herbs that people can use to sometimes alleviate certain aspects of what they're dealing with the special needs, or overcoming certain conditions altogether. It has happened. It can happen, right? I've seen situations where people dealing with schizophrenia be completely healed, all right? Other conditions, even so, autism can be completely healed. That doesn't mean that it's going to be healed in every individual's situation, though. A lot of it has to do with how far gone they are in the process, and also like the source of it. It's very important to get EFI consultation to determine if a crochet, herbs, certain ritual work, etc., will be appropriate for such a situation when it comes to healing somebody with special needs. But it is a possibility, a strong possibility. Okay. You're saying, this is saying no one is born with a bad Ori. One might be facing difficulties in their lives, but that doesn't mean that they are born with a bad Ori. They just need to please the Ori for restoration and balancing. Yes, I get you, and I understand where Asaju is coming from as well, because definitely I've heard that it could be some translation situations where it's just kind of positioned that way as a bad Ori. It's really just a misaligned Ori, as I said before. It's not necessarily bad. So if somebody's Ori is misaligned, they're going to always be into some kind of things that lead them astray and keep them off of the path of achieving balance and walking in gentle character, Iwapele. So yes, but as he said, we're talking about the same concept, and we're basically saying the same things. There are certain things you can definitely do to align yourself. You're saying over here on IG, I can attest to healing. I had lumps in my breast that came up in a reading that may be cancerous. I did evo, and now they can no longer find the lumps. Absolutely. Through the mammogram or the ultrasound. 100%. Absolutely. IFA heals. Like, spiritual medicine is deep. There's so many things that can be achieved through it. Matter of fact, I'm going to be doing a series. I'm going to talk to you guys shortly about the next section, next live stream. I don't know what is going on today with me talking. Mercury in retrograde or something. I don't think it is, but for some reason I can't get my words out like I want to today. So you guys forgive me. You're very, very welcome, Asaju. So definitely IFA heals, and like I said, we're going to be getting into that. I want to do a series on that, talking about different forms of a crochet and how it works and how it can help you guys. And it can transform, it can heal even those conditions, but it can't heal those conditions all the time, right? So definitely, do your research, do your homework, get your divination done. And sometimes it's a trial and error situation as well. It's not always that first go around, whatever you take, whatever you do, it will work. Sometimes it is. I've I had situations with clients where they were taking a crochet for something completely different to relieve a curse, and it healed a very serious health condition for them. It wasn't used for that though. That's not the reason why they were taking it, but they were very blessed and relieved that it helped them in that way. And it was miraculous. They went to their doctor, and the doctor was like, whoa, this has healed. And they were taking it for something completely different. So when it comes to health concerns, you should definitely communicate clearly, as I said before, to your priest so that a crochet can be prepared properly. And I've talked about this before in the crochet episode, and I want to harp on this because there is a major thing with the allergies. So you make sure that you tell somebody that you have an allergy when you're dealing with the crochet, because again, that's not something that is common in the Yoruba society as a whole for you to just be like, I have an allergy, right? So it's not something that they deal with, especially like we do here in the West. Even so, like people who are vegan or on any type of special diets, regulated diet, if you're on a diabetic diet, etc., you need to communicate those things whenever you are taking a crochet, because it comes with different constituents. You're welcome. You're very, very welcome. Thank you so much. I want this one. Thank you, guys. Thank you guys for being patient with me. I know what the heck is going on with my communication skills. Okay, so when it comes to a crochet herbs, they can oftentimes be used alongside Western medicine. But again, you want to disclose that contraindications are a real thing, guys, which means that some medications and the crochet do not work together, right? And so you want to be very, very realistic about what you're doing when it comes to these dynamics. Don't withhold information. Ask questions, talk about things. Don't be shy. Don't be afraid to tell your owl what's going on with you, because they need to know those things in order to help you out in the most efficient way. Okay. So individuals with special needs can likewise benefit from those charms, especially when it comes to protection and things like that. So if you have a child or something with special needs and they're in the school system, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you get them some type of amulet or a charm to be wearing on their body, or even so, sometimes they can take certain crochet, etc., to protect them. You want them protected because all kinds of things happen out here, unfortunately, in the world. We have to be realistic about what goes on, especially with people with special needs and disabilities. So you can definitely use certain things to protect them on a day-to-day basis, the ID, Lakey beads, things like that. We're going to get more into that as when I get into the protection of crochet as well. Now, this is the last section I wanted to cover here. So guys, if you have any lingering questions or something like that, please let us know, and we will definitely try to get to it before we close out. These are some additional things to think about when it comes to these dynamics. So if you're having problems financially with affording both, the medical treatment, special needs, etc., plus any treatment that you need through the EFI system, you definitely want to prioritize your safety first. You can also request some modifications sometimes when it comes to practicing EFI or some type of phase support, because it can get expensive, right? And I know that firsthand. It can be very, very expensive to buy a crochet in general. I'm not even just talking about for special needs. It can be very, very expensive to get these things out. That's the way it goes, because it takes a whole lot. You're talking about somebody with special needs. Sometimes it can be very, very big very, very high price, etc., when it comes to getting the person the help that they need. So you may have to, time it or figure out how to get that done. Have those conversations with the people that you're working with. They may be able to help you out in certain ways. It is also fully appropriate to request any type of mentorship that you may need that honors access to your needs, that honors your needs, etc., your learning style. You definitely want to have those conversations as well, because sometimes it's not just a matter of the and the rituals, etc. It's a matter of you being able to get the counsel and the information that you need, especially when we're talking about things like neurodivergence or the communication issues with individuals with autism, sometimes, dyslexia, even things of that nature. So if you need help with understanding specific things, let people know so that they can try their best to accommodate you as much as possible. Guys, remember, IFA can definitely empower you or your loved one to speak up, to set the appropriate boundaries around you and your needs and your well-being, and to lead with confidence, to lead your life with confidence, despite any social barriers you may be experiencing. Also remember, guys, you're your loved one. You're not broken. This is not about brokenness. This is not about falling victim to, you can't type of mentality. There are plenty of people with special needs who live very active lives, who move forward each and every day. IFA can absolutely help you to achieve this to an even higher level for you, your loved one, right? The journey is very much so sacred. Your presence is valid, right? And your destiny is very much so worthy of respect. As I said before, guys, next week I plan on discussing IFA remedies, the spiritual remedies, the crochet, etc., for prosperity. And we're going to do a series and talk about each dimension of this. So I want to deal with, we're going to talk about prosperity next week, but moving there after, I want to talk about protection work and love work and health work, because I get a lot of questions just kind of related to all of those. And I wanted to break out each of these section by section so that you can understand how they work. I hope that this has been helpful for you guys. If you have any more questions, I'm going to go ahead and take leave of you. So that is all I have for you. Thank you all for showing up as always, especially today, despite my few communication challenges I'm having. Don't know what that's about. So, Ashe, please, guys, have a very blessed and beautiful day and beyond.